By the time my husband told me he was bisexual, we'd already picked out our retirement city. That's the detail I keep circling back to when people ask how long we'd been together. Not the wedding, not buying the house. This throwaway evening in our late 20s, half watching a show about train journeys, when I turned to him and said, "If we're still together at 70, you're taking me somewhere with better public transit." He laughed and said, "Deal. Lisbon?" And I said, "Lisbon." And that was that. Somewhere between student loans and furniture assembly, we quietly decided to get old together. So when he sat me down at the kitchen table 9 years later and told me he was bi, it felt less like a bomb going off and more like the floor quietly tilting a few degrees to the left. "Okay," I said, because that's what my mouth did while my brain flipped through every memory we'd ever shared like a Rolodex. "Okay. Say more words?" His name is Daniel, but I mostly call him Dan. At that moment, though, he was Daniel, back straight, hands clenched around his glass of water, dark hair flopping over his forehead, jaw working like he was chewing something tough. "I've known for a while," he said. "Since before you. I just didn't have a word for it that didn't feel like it exploded my life. And then we got serious, and then we got married, and it always felt like not the right time." I picked at a chip in the laminate table. "How long is a while?" "Teenage years," he admitted. I told myself it was a phase, or that because I loved you, it didn't matter. And then lately I've just felt like I'm lying by omission. Every time someone makes a joke about, "Your husband must love boobs," I laugh, and there's this little voice in my head going, "Well, yes, but—" He huffed out a humorless laugh. "I don't want that voice getting louder without you knowing it's there." I watched his knuckles go white around the glass. "So this isn't you telling me you want to leave?" I said carefully. "Or that you've done anything?" "No, God, no." He leaned forward so fast the water sloshed. "This isn't about anyone else. I'm not asking to open our marriage. I'm not confessing an affair. I just—" He spread his hands helplessly. "I love you, and I also happen to be attracted to men. I don't want that to be a secret between us." Something in my chest loosened, just a notch. "Okay," I said again, more slowly. "I appreciate you telling me, even if my stomach is currently doing a Cirque du Soleil routine." He winced. "I'm sorry." "Stop apologizing," I said automatically. "You didn't choose this. And it's not like I'm shocked that other people find men attractive." I gestured down my own body. "I'm pretty invested in the concept myself." His mouth twitched. "You're handling this better than I expected." "I haven't had time to freak out yet," I said honestly. "Give me a minute, I might still throw a plate." I didn't throw a plate. What I did over the next week was Google way too much. Married to a bisexual man. Is my marriage doomed if my husband comes out? How to support bi partner without turning into a jealous goblin? The internet, unhelpfully, offered every possible outcome at once. I also watched him. I noticed the way he relaxed, just a little, when I made a small joke. "So I have competition from everyone now, great." And didn't follow it up with an interrogation. I noticed the careful way he talked about male celebrities, as if he'd had practice editing pronouns in his head. And I noticed more than anything, how much I still wanted to climb into his lap when he sat on the couch and rest my head on his shoulder, same as always. A few weeks later, we were brushing our teeth side by side when I spat into the sink and said, "So, do you want to do anything with this information?" He blinked toothpaste foam at me. "Like what? Print t-shirts?" "You know what I mean?" I said, rinsing. "You're out to me now. Is there something you want? To talk to other bi people? Go to a queer bar? I don't want you to spend the next 40 years watching sitcoms and feeling like this part of you died in my kitchen." He stared at me in the mirror, electric toothbrush buzzing in his hand. "You'd be okay with that?" he asked after spitting. "Going with me?" I thought about it, about my initial lurch of fear, the way the floor had tilted, about all the articles I'd read about bi erasure, and partners who treated it like a threat instead of a truth. If we go, I said, we go together. As a team. I'm not saying I'm going to watch you make out with someone on the dance floor and high-five you, but I also don't want to be the reason you never step foot in queer spaces. He looked at me like I'd handed him a gift too fragile to touch. Okay, he said softly. There's this queer social night at the community center on Fridays. It's part mixer, part board game thing, apparently. Low-key. We could try that? Sure, I said, heart doing a new routine. Queer Scrabble. How dangerous can it be? Spoiler, not very, but also, somehow, life-changing. The community center was in a slightly shabby building that smelled faintly of coffee and dust. A rainbow flag hung in the lobby. Down the hall, laughter spilled out of a multi-purpose room along with the clack of game pieces and the low hum of music. A hand-lettered sign read, Community Night, all genders, all orientations, all ages 21 plus welcome. I squeezed Daniel's hand. Ready? No, he said, but his eyes were bright. Let's go anyway. Inside, people clustered around tables covered in mismatched board games. Someone had brought homemade brownies. A woman in a wheelchair with purple hair waved us over and introduced herself as Maya, one of the organizers. First time? She asked, clocking our matching deer-in-headlights expressions. Is it that obvious? I said. In a charming way, she replied. Grab name tags, grab snacks, grab a game. No pressure to be anything but here. I wrote Hannah, she, her, in neat letters. The wife, the ally, the one who had already rehearsed saying, my husband is bi in her head, but not yet out loud. Next to me, he wrote Daniel, he, him, and hesitated before adding a small bi under his name. I watched his hand shake as the letters formed, and something in my chest ached. We ended up at a table playing a cooperative card game with a few strangers. I was half paying attention to the rules when someone slid into the empty seat across from Daniel. Hey, I'm Eli, he said, offering a hand. Is this the doomed train one or the doomed spaceship one? He was unassuming at first glance. Late 20s or early 30s like us. Warm brown skin, dark curls cropped close on the sides and a bit longer on top. Soft green t-shirt, jeans, a watch with a worn leather band. The kind of smile that made you feel like you'd just told a joke he genuinely enjoyed. This is the doomed heist one, Daniel said, shaking his hand. I think. We're still figuring it out. Excellent, Eli said. I love failing cooperatively. He glanced at my name tag. Nice to meet you, Hannah. You too, I said. If this were a movie, there'd be some dramatic zoom on their hands touching, or the air would shimmer around them. In reality, the first thing I noticed was that Daniel laughed more, not louder, just easier. He leaned forward when Eli talked, asked questions. They got into a brief argument about whether a character on a show we all watched was queer-coded or just very badly written. Eli gestured a lot when he spoke. Daniel mirrored him unconsciously, his own hands more animated than I'd seen in months, and something in me tightened, low and mean. Who is this guy? It wasn't that I disliked him, that would have been simpler. I did like him. He was funny without being showy, listened more than he talked, asked me about my job, and remembered the answer. When our heist team predictably failed and the deck collapsed into chaos, he laughed with his whole body, head tipped back, and it was impossible not to smile along. But every time he looked at Daniel, really looked, with this soft attentiveness, I felt a hot little twist in my gut. There it is, I thought. Jealousy. Hello, old friend. Walking home, I jammed my hands into my coat pockets and forced my voice to be light. You and Eli really hit it off? I said. Daniel's breath fogged in the chilly air. Yeah, he said, almost dazed. He's easy to talk to. I swallowed. You liked that he's, like you. Daniel glanced at me sharply. Are you mad? No, I said too quickly. No, this is new. I'm allowed to have feelings. It's in the marriage contract. He exhaled, shoulders dropping. I do like that he gets it, he said quietly. We talked for a while when you went to the bathroom. About coming out later in life. About feeling like the universe missed a memo. My chest pinched. I was gone for 3 minutes. His lips quirked. Bisexuals are efficient. I bumped his shoulder. Ass. He bumped back, but his smile faded a little. If this is too much, he said, we don't have to go back. I don't want to hurt you just because I finally wrote B on a sticker. I walked in silence for a few steps, watching the lamplight pool on the pavement. Seeing him with Eli had hurt, yes, but it hadn't felt like watching a spouse flirt behind my back. It had felt like seeing color in a part of him that had always been muted around me. There was fear in that, fear of being left behind. But there was also this strange, bright satisfaction. I liked seeing you. Lit up, I said finally. Even if part of me wanted to steal your permanent marker and write taken across your forehead. He laughed, relief escaping in a puff of white. How about we go again? I added, and I pay attention to what I'm feeling instead of trying to pre-approve it. Deal, he said softly. We went back. Weeks blurred into a rhythm. Work, laundry, bills, queer board game nights. I got oddly invested in the doomed heist game. Daniel and Eli developed an ongoing bit about which fictional characters they'd build a bisexual council with. Eli started sending us memes between Fridays. Somewhere along the way, my jealousy shifted shape. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about us, the three of us, orbiting each other in slightly unstable paths. One night, after a particularly chaotic attempt to save our fictional heist team, Eli walked us to the door. I'm heading this way, he said, jerking his thumb toward the train station. You two want to split a lift? I can drop you off. We're only 10 minutes away, I said. We'll walk. Suit yourselves. He hesitated, then glanced at Daniel. You coming next week? Daniel nodded, shoving his hands into his jacket. Yeah, wouldn't miss it. Same, Eli said, and then his gaze flicked to me. If that's still okay with you, Hannah. The way he said it, direct, respectful, made heat crawl up my neck. I like watching you two argue about TV, I said. So, yes. He smiled, softer than usual. See you both next Friday. As he walked away, I realized I was watching his shoulders, the easy line of his back, the way his curls caught in the breeze. Oh, I thought, with a jolt. Oh no. At home that night, Daniel was brushing his teeth when I leaned against the bathroom doorway and blurted, I think I have a crush on your crush. He choked on foam. What? Eli, I said, cheeks burning. I think I like him. Not just as the guy my husband flirts with over board games. He spit, rinsed, and stared at me. You're not just saying this to make me feel less weird? He asked cautiously. If I were, I'd pick someone less likely to make my brain explode, I said. I keep replaying the way he asked if it was okay with me that he comes every week. Who does that? Who is that considerate? Daniel leaned back against the sink, processing. This is a plot twist, he said finally. No kidding, I muttered. We lay in bed staring at the ceiling, talking in circles. Did Eli even like me that way, or was I just the wife? Were we making up a triangle where there was just a line? What did it mean for us if we both liked the same person? At least we have consistent taste, Daniel said at one point, half laughing, half panicked. I wish we both had terrible taste, I said. It would be simpler. Days turned into weeks. We kept going to community nights. I paid more attention to how Eli talked to me, to the way his gaze lingered on my face when I told a story, the small, almost imperceptible ways he checked that I was included in jokes. One night, when Daniel got caught up in a heated discussion across the room about trans representation in fantasy novels, Eli and I ended up washing mugs together in the tiny kitchen off the main hall. Can I ask you something slightly nosy? He said, handing me a dripping cup. Only if I can pretend I don't want to know, I said. He smiled. Is Daniel happy with all of this? Coming out? Being here? With you? The answer should have been simple. It wasn't. I think so, I said slowly. He seems lighter, but also scared. Like he's waiting for the other shoe to drop, and he's not sure if I'm the one holding it. Eli nodded, thoughtful. He talks about you a lot, he said, in a good way, like he still can't believe he landed you. Warmth flared in my chest. He gives good sales pitches. Eli glanced at me, something unreadable in his eyes. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you're handling this beautifully. I've seen the opposite. Partners who treat queerness like a betrayal or a phase to be tolerated. You actually show up. You haven't seen me sobbing into my pillow, I said lightly, then winced. That was a joke, mostly. I assumed, he said gently. You're allowed to have feelings. You don't have to be the perfect cool wife for my benefit. There was that consideration again, that deliberate kindness. I swallowed. Do you… I started, then chickened out. Never mind. What? Nothing. It's stupid. He set the mug down and leaned against the counter. Hannah, he said. The whole point of this place is that we get to say the stupid things out loud. It's in the bylaws. I took a breath. Do you ever wish, I said, that relationships could be less linear, less pick your one person, and that's that? Because lately I feel like I'm in a geometry problem no one taught me how to solve. His smile faltered, then came back softer. All the time, he said. But I also know that most people don't actually want polygons in their love life. They want clear lines, clear roles. Anything else gets messy. Messy isn't always bad, I said, surprising myself. He studied my face for a long moment, as if weighing something. I like both of you, he said quietly. Your husband, very obviously, but also you. I've been trying very hard not to make anyone uncomfortable about that. I felt like someone had opened a window in my chest. You… really? Yes. A humorless little laugh escaped him. You're smart and funny and you call Daniel on his nonsense without being cruel. You're magnetic. His gaze slid away. And also very married, which is why I assume this is all in the realm of nice thoughts, terrible reality. I gripped the edge of the counter. What if, I said, heart pounding, reality isn't as terrible as you think? He looked at me again, eyes wide. Is that a hypothetical? He asked. It's an, I need to talk to my husband and maybe a therapist, I said. But also, maybe not hypothetical. He exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. For the record, if this goes nowhere, please know I value you both enough that I'd rather stay your friend than blow up your life. Any doors you open, you get to close again. I'm not here to kick them in. I believed him. That, more than anything, is why we told Daniel. The conversation that followed, back home in our kitchen where this whole thing had started, was messy and tender and terrifying. There were pauses so long I thought I might disintegrate into dust between them. There were phrases like polyamory and closed triad and what if this ruins everything, said aloud, like we were testing them for poison. I don't know if I'm built for this, I admitted at one point, hands wrapped around a mug of tea I wasn't drinking. I've spent my whole life aiming at one person, one track. The idea of loving two people at once feels like cheating at the game, even if everyone agrees on the rules. Daniel's eyes were glassy. I don't want to lose you, he said. If this is a yes or no question where yes costs me my marriage, the answer is no. Every time. I need you to know that. What if it's not yes or no? I whispered. What if it's all of us, or none of us? We sat with that for a long time. In the end, we made a list. Boundaries, non-negotiables, therapy appointments. We wrote closed loop at the top of a page. No dating outside the three of us, no surprise guests, no secrets about feelings, and underlined it twice. And then, on a rainy Thursday, we invited Eli over for dinner. He came in with a bottle of wine and a visible case of nerves. "I brought a peace offering," he said, holding up the Merlot. "In case this ends with you deciding to ban me from board games forever." "Relax," I said, taking his coat. "We only ban people for cheating at heists." Dinner was awkward, then not. We talked about everything except the thing humming in the air between us: work, childhood pets, the weird neighbor across the hall who played the same EDM track at 7 a.m. most mornings. At one point, Daniel spilled sauce on his shirt, and we all burst out laughing at the relief of something normal and stupid. Afterwards, we sat on the couch, three people who suddenly didn't know where to put their hands. I could feel the warmth of their bodies on either side of me, the charged space on the cushions where our knees almost touched. "Okay," Eli said finally, exhaling. "I feel like we're all waiting for someone to say a thing." "Probably," I said. Daniel cleared his throat. "I love my wife," he began, voice steady. "I want that to be the first and last line of this conversation. I also, like you, a lot. And she does too." He glanced at me. I nodded. "We've been talking, and we're wondering if there's a world where this doesn't have to be a triangle with someone in the corner." Eli's mouth fell open just a little. "You're asking if I want to be with both of you," he said slowly. "Like, all of us, together." "Yes," I said, heart banging against my ribs. "Exclusively. No outside partners, no sneaking around. Just a weird little closed-loop experiment in caring about each other." He stared at his hands for a long second, then looked up, eyes shining. "I've never been anyone's first choice," he said softly. "I've been the secret, the side quest, the maybe when I'm single." "Are you sure you're not just trying to fix something between the two of you by adding me like a piece of furniture?" Daniel's voice broke. "We were okay before," he said. "Not perfect, but okay. This isn't about plugging a hole with another person. It's about realizing there's more love in the room than we thought and deciding what to do with it." Eli swallowed hard. "I want this," he whispered. "I'm scared out of my mind, but I want it." Relief rolled through me so strong it made me dizzy. "Then we go slow," I said. "We talk a lot. We screw up and fix it, and we keep the loop closed. If anyone starts feeling like there's not enough for them, we stop and reassess." It wasn't a lightning bolt. It was three people leaning in, cautiously, like testing the temperature of a pool with their toes before wading deeper. Our first kiss as a we was clumsy and over too fast. Eli sat between us, and we all laughed at the logistics. Who leans where? Whose nose is in the way? Then I kissed Eli. Then Daniel did. Then they both turned to me, and for the first time, I felt what it was like to be at the center of that much affection without dividing myself into pieces. It didn't fix everything. We still had bills and laundry and that neighbor's terrible EDM. There were days I felt stretched thin with emotion, days we miscommunicated and had to untangle hurt feelings like knotted necklaces. But there were also mornings when I woke up with Daniel's arm flung over my waist and Eli's hand warm at my back, their breathing overlapping in the half-dark, and felt this profound, bone-deep rightness. At community nights, we started sharing one chair between two of us, the third perched on the armrest. People noticed. Most of them just smiled and scooted their game pieces over to make room. A few asked polite questions. No one set us on fire. Sometimes when someone new would sit down and ask, "So, how do you all know each other?" we'd look at one another and grin. "I married him," I'd say, nodding at Daniel. "Then we both kind of fell for him," gesturing at Eli. "And now, we're one of those complicated shapes they warned you about in school," Eli would add. "I still don't know what our retirement plan looks like now. Lisbon might have to make room for an extra chair on the balcony. Maybe we'll end up in some quiet city with excellent transit and terrible EDM, waving our canes at teenagers. What I do know is this. When I picture getting old, I don't see a neat line anymore. I see a loop. 3 hands overlapping on a table, 3 coffee cups cooling as we argue about some ridiculous board game. Three people choosing, day after mundane day, to stay. Turns out, there are worse things than discovering your husband likes men as well as women. Like never finding out that your heart had room for one more person the whole time.